All right, we are on Tuesday 11/21. So as it says right here, we're going to go over 2 problems from Chapter 5, 2 problems from Chapter 6. That's what I sent you, along with a JavaScript form validation example that I also sent you. All of these that I sent you are incomplete. So I'm going to give you the code for them right now. Okay? Then tomorrow I'm going to go over the test for the first half of the period, and the rest of the period will be lab. My hope is we'll go through this stuff today as quickly as possible. I'm not trying to jam it down your throats, but I want to give you as much lab time as possible. Remember then next week, Monday, will be lab the entire period. Tuesday we'll take the written test for Chapter 6 right when you come in, and the rest of the period will be lab. All right? Wednesday, we will do the hands-on test. So that is a week from tomorrow, we will do the hands-on test. Thursday, I think I showed you this, but just in case I did not, where is it? This is what we're building. All right, and we're it's going to be a JavaScript game. It's pretty simple. See if I can win. Well, if it gets over here, it comes back instead of saying game over, it says Taylor said yes to the dress. All right, so that's what we're going to do on that day. And then the hope is that Friday, so a week from Friday on 12/1, what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to, right in front of you, get a domain name for that wedding site, go over, grab the domain, use FileZilla, copy everything from that site up there, and actually have it live and on the internet. All right? I have no idea how long that'll take, but that's what we're going to do as a class. All right? Then when we come back, so that'll be basically into about a week, 10 days, whatever it is, we've got chapters 8 and 12 to go. All right? So you can go through this. I gave you this the other day. I'm going to stick to it as well as I possibly can. So the first one that you have in there in this list of things that I gave you is hands-on project 5.2. I picked 5.2 because I think that 5.3 and 5.4 are both based off of 5.2. All right, so the idea is if you have one of them, that should help you, all right, get the other ones. I should also mention that when is this? This isn't a ways up, but 2 weeks from Thursday, 3 weeks from Thursday, sorry, 3 weeks from Thursday, there's going to be end of course surveys. I leave here for about a half an hour. These surveys that you will take are totally anonymous. They don't know what machines that they're coming from, etc. They're not tracked, but it's your chance to say whatever you want to say about me, whatever you want to say about the course. I'm going to tell you this. You might smile. It's not a joke. The only thing I ask is that you keep it PG rated. All right. Because I had a guy when I was at Blackhawk, for whatever reason, didn't like me. I still don't know who it was, but he said he is one of the slimiest mother you-know-whats, and he put that in there. And then it got worse after that. All right? And even my boss said, "What'd you do?" I said, "I don't even know who the heck did it." And the funny thing is, by and large, everybody in the class was getting an A. So I don't know. All right. So we will do that. Again, what you'll do is you'll get online. Shannon will give you each a URL to use. And literally, I end up meeting with her after that for about a half an hour. And it's going to do this class and my afternoon class. All right? And this is your time, too. If you know what, Jeff, you're okay, but man, this JavaScript book really stunk. That's what you should put down. We're not going to use the HTML book we're using anymore. We're not going to use the JavaScript book that we're using anymore after this semester. They won't be used. All right? That doesn't help you guys. All right? But part of that is because when we're going to make changes, you've got to make them in December for next fall. They've got to be in by December 15th. That's just the way that it works here. So if we didn't tell them that we were using a new book by December, we couldn't use a new book. Plus, as you'd guess, I've already done a boatload of lectures from these 2 books. So I got to go back and redo lectures because the new books are going to be different. I don't mind doing that. All right. So all that said, I'm going to actually, I don't normally do it this way, but I'm going to go and see if I can find my, is it here? It's not here. There. I'm going to find the completed projects here and actually bring those up. All right. So what you have in yours, all right, is you've got this confirm thing. So the idea is when you run this and you click submit, it brings this up. This is meant to be a pop-up, just so you know. What it actually is it's a new window. This is what it really looks like. Okay? But you're told when you create it to give it certain dimensions so it looks more like a pop-up. This isn't a true pop-up because most of the time with pop-ups they'll have like an OK button or a cancel button or something like that on there. All right, but this is just the way that they had you build it. So just so you know it, you've got the entire styles file, you've got the entire modernizer file, you've got the entire confirm file. You've got all those. You've got partial index.htm. I'm going to ask you this question. You may not care, but it's a little trivial thing. Maybe I even told you this already. Why is that called HTML and not HTML? Anybody know? Yeah. Back in the olden days, like in the 90s and the early 200s or 2000s, browser extension, or not browser, file extensions could only be up to 3 letters. All right? And that's why you still see some HTMs. In fact, if you go to a website and you don't put in a beginning page, it first looks for index.html. Secondly, it looks for index.htm. Okay? Just so you know that. All right. So you've got this. I'd like you to bring up this index.htm file. Now, you don't even have to do this if you've already, because a couple of you have already turned this in. Okay? And that's fine. But I just want to show you what's happening on here. So as it says, I'm cutting that down a little bit so we can read all this. In this project, you'll create a function that opens a confirmation window when the user clicks a button. So really, as far as we're concerned, the stuff that's actually in here, it doesn't matter if you put anything in there or not. I just want everybody to realize that. That's not what we're looking at on this particular example. We don't care if you put anything in there or you don't. The idea is when you click submit, that's when that other form is going to come up in the guise of, or it's going to look like a pop-up. All right? So it says the window that you create will be centered on the user's screen. So in your text editor, open the index.html, or .htm file rather, add your name and today's date, etc. Within the body section, just before the closing body tag, add a script element, and then put in the following function. So they give you this. I guess I didn't. But if you want to, you can grab that from right here, from the comments. All right, you can grab all of that right there that I've got in gray, copy it to the clipboard, go down here, and when you have the script file, paste it in. You don't have this stuff I'm showing you right here. All right? But does that make sense to everybody? If you want to do that, you can grab this, copy it to the clipboard, go down to here where yours is empty, and paste it in. If you don't want to do that, this is the same stuff, the process input, right here. So I'll leave that up there so you can see it. This, we've got to do this, and then this. That's the whole program. All right, so I'll leave that up there. Again, if you don't care, if you've already got it done, that's fine. I'm doing this more for the benefit of those of you who are struggling with this stuff. That's why I'm taking the time to go over some of these. What's this doing? Well, that's setting the dimensions of the window that we're about to create. So that 300 by 100, that's this. Does that make sense? 300 wide, 100 tall. Okay? That's what we're doing right there with that. Then we're telling it where we want it to be positioned. And for lack of better words, yeah, it's math. Oh God, I hate math. Well, it's math because you are figuring out where you are on the screen by using the height and the width so you can center it on the screen. All right, so you're giving it those dimensions, and then you're telling it to actually put it basically right there, and with that width and with that height. Does that make sense? All right, so you are creating the window, you are setting its dimensions, you are figuring out where the window will go, and you're putting it there. All right? And these are all the options that you're setting to do that. Now, if you say, well, what does this do exactly? What is this? Again, it's where it is to the left, where it is from the top, etc. If you want more, just go Google it. All right? You can go back to the same exact HTML tutorial that I showed you from W3 Schools and go to the window object and take a look at what's in there. All right? I'm sure not an expert on this stuff. Typically, when I have to do something like this, I go out and try to find a script that's already got it written for me. All right? And I modify it accordingly. All right? All right. Does everybody who wants it, do you all have this? Okay, hopefully you just copied it in because that's a hell of a lot easier than typing in yourself. All right, then we have to set up the event listeners. So that's this. All right, so function create event listener. That's right here. And I'll leave that up there for a minute. And actually, all that's left is just a couple more lines. So possibly if I shrink this down just a bit, that's everything. That's the rest of the program. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to put that in, or if I've given you part of it to copy it over, then we'll talk about that. All right? first thing to realize about this is not the only way of doing this. This is the way the author did it. I'm not saying it's a good way, it's a bad way. It works, which the bottom line is that's the most important thing. All right? So what this is doing, and you probably have figured that out already, is this is associating you clicking the button, the submit button, with calling the process input method. Now that should make sense to you. It should make sense to everybody in here. What this is saying is, rather than calling it document.getElementById submit, we want to give it a name. So we're calling it submit button. So what this is, and you'll hear this term at least occasionally, this thing right here, this submit button, that is an alias for this. Does that make sense? And it's an alias, meaning we don't have to be typing in document.get, etc. In fact, when we look at the last program we're going to look at today, which is the miles per gallon program that I've written as an HTML form, you're going to see something similar to this. It won't be identical, but it'll be similar, where we use an alias. All right? So this is saying if we're doing it the newfangled way, right there, all right, meaning we want to add the event listener. So this is saying when we click the button, we want to call that routine. That's what it means. This is the old-fangled way, so this is the old IE way of doing it. All right? So this is registering, for lack of better words, this is registering our button, our submit button, and it is equating it with calling the process input function. All right? Then we've got this down here. And this is saying, hey, as soon as the program loads, make what's in that submit button, it's wiring that up. All right? So it's saying, hey, when you load, we want you to basically have that available. You say, well, we didn't do it like that before. And all I can tell you is this is a way of doing it. If you go, do you really need this? One of the reasons I'm giving you the code is if you want to find out questions like that, do I really need this? Then comment it out, run the program again, and see what happens. That's how you find out. You don't find out squat by saying to somebody, what happens if I do this? All right? It's like, I look in the mirror and I'm like, geez, what would happen if I would lose 50 pounds? And what comes into my head is, you wouldn't be such a fat pig. Your pants would fit better. All right? You'd probably sleep better, etc. But it's one thing to look in the mirror and ask. It's another thing to go out and try to do it. And since my daughter is getting married on October 5th, right now I'm at 240 pounds. My goal is to be at 175 when she gets married. Because I'd much rather have people coming up to me and going, are you sick? You look so skinny. Than, oh, you look nice and, well, whatever. All right? So, that's this program. Does everybody got it? You've got the code now. If for some reason you tried it and yours does not work, all right, then go back and take a look at the video if you have to. All right? Okay. So, let's go to the next one. And the next one in here is 5-5, I believe, that I gave you. And it should look like this. Now, look on the screen, please. The idea is if I click Amendment 10, you see how it jumped? You go, well, why didn't that jump to the top? It didn't jump to the top because there are no more lines down here. Do you understand what I'm saying? All right. We could have had, they didn't tell you to do this, but we could have put a go to top in here, etc. We could have made the font bigger. There's a lot of stuff that could have been done in here. All right. But the idea is you can be anywhere in here and you can jump. So notice now 4 is on the top. Notice now, all right, 6 is towards the top, etc. Get the idea? All right. So again, when you look at this one, what you have is you've got the styles, you've got the modernizer, and if you open up your index, what you need is just this down at the bottom. And I'll give you that in just a second. I will. But let's first look at what it is we're supposed to do. In this project, you'll create and reference document elements as a means of generating a table of contents for a document containing the United States Bill of Rights. In your text editor, open it up. Okay, just before the body tag, add a script element, so you've got a blank script element. Within the script element, declare a variable named list that contains a reference to the only UL element in the document. Also declare empty variables, heading text, and TOC entry. So what is that? That's these three variables. Now the bottom two should make sense to you. Don't worry about typing it in. I'm going to give you time to do it. Please just look at the screen. But what I'm concerned with is this. It's important that you realize there's only one unordered list in here, okay? That's why we can use query selector. Remember, query selector only returns the first one it finds. If there were multiple ULs in here, we'd probably want to give each one an ID and use the get element by ID. These are things that have to start making sense to you, all right? I didn't even tell you this yet, but I'll show you this very quickly. I don't want to waste too much time, but kind of an important thing. And some of you might get excited when you hear this. Some of you might not give a hoot, but that's fine. And that is, where is it? Mailbox. There we go. Next week, sometime, we're having a woman come in, special guest speaker for about 20 to 30 minutes. Her name is Laura DeVries, or DeVries, I don't know. She owns a company in St. Louis called Comcore Marketing. She's looking for people who are interested in internships. Are they paid? Don't know. Are they local? Don't know. But Jeremy sent me this email asking if she could come in and talk both to first-year students and second-year students. So she's going to come in here sometime next week. I don't know when. I wanted her in this week, so she could already start talking to people. But they said that was not enough notice for her. So she's going to come in. He's got the email sent out to her, and as soon as she lets me know, that means that one of the mornings when you come in next week, I said don't do it Wednesday because we're taking a test. But either Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday of next week, we're going to have to change our timeline a little bit so she can come in here. All right? I would suggest now, if you're interested, and if you say, if you have a resume, bring it with you next week. All right? And if you don't have one, okay, then let me know. Or if you'd like one, I can give you a copy. I don't even know. I probably still have yours around someplace, Colin, because Colin gave me his. Then I gave him some. I've got a kind of a template that I recommend people use. Now, you might look at it. It's your resume. And I don't think you'd want to do this, but let's just say Matthew says, well, it is my resume. I want a yellow background. I want pink text. It's his resume, and he can do that. I wouldn't do that, but you can do that if you want to. And what you're going to have to do by the end of the semester is you're going to have to give me a copy of your resume. All right? It'll be in a week or in 2 weeks or whenever. Okay, and if you don't, I don't know how to do one, then just look online. There's all sorts of templates and whatever. I would not use a Word template. Those are the worst resume templates I've ever seen in my life. All right? But you're going to have to do that. And then I will make suggestions. I'd say, hey, I'd do it like this. And if Jesse looks at his and says, mine's better, then that's the one he should use. It's his resume. All right? Okay, so that'll be something next week. So we've got these variables. And that's this step right here. Then below the variable declarations, create a for loop that sets a counter to 1, repeats it as long as the value is less than or equal to 10, and increments it every time. Well, that pretty much looks like it would be this, doesn't it? It's going to say do this 10 times. So what do we want to do 10 times? Within the for loop, we want to do these 4 things. First, set the value of the heading text variable to the content of the element within that ID. So that first thing is this. That's saying grab, all right, grab whatever inner HTML is there right now, and that'll be our heading text. All right. This, the table of contents entry, will be, what is it doing? It's creating an LI element. It's going to throw in that heading text, and then it's going to append it. So for lack of better words, what it's doing is it's creating this. Does that make sense to everybody? And you might say, well, why couldn't you have just done that by yourself? You could. But the point is, doing it this way, doing it like this, the way we're doing it, if it turns out that later we add more amendments to the Bill of Rights, I don't think that's going to happen, but if we did, we could add the text down here and then had, Amendment 11, Amendment 12, etc. Then after we did that, all we'd have to do would be to change that number. You could have even given that a constant if you wanted to. We could have done that. All right? So this is what we're doing, is we're building that table of contents right there. What else is left? Well, all we're doing is we're registering the function. So we're saying when the program loads, make sure that that's available. Does all that make sense? All right. So here's the whole code. That's everything. I don't know why, but this is lined up a little funky like, but and I'm realizing, especially as I get older, I'm getting more and more anal. Stuff's got to line up or I'm not happy. All right. Is that big enough? Hopefully that's big enough that everybody in here can read it. I'll leave that up there for about 5 minutes. And we're going on into Chapter 6. Yes, sir.
So if I turned it in with it in 6 lines instead of 4, and a little different in the order that it was on,
If it works, I don't care. That's why I said at the beginning, there are a lot of different ways that this can be written. This is one way. This is a hybrid of the way the author did it and the way that I did it. Because typically I do it and then I look and I thought if the author's is better, I'll kind of massage his stuff in here. If mine's better, I'll just leave it alone. But most of these were done. They've got a date on them. They're a year ago, so I can't tell you at that time exactly what I did, why I did it, etc. And did you notice that in these, I'm putting all my comments at the top? Right? I'm literally taking them right from the book. And I don't have a magical way at that time. I didn't have access to this book. I typed this stuff in. All right. Normally, I would take all those comments that you found up above and I'd put them in here. But I didn't want to litter this code up with a lot of comments. So I did it the way I did it.
Because I use 2 variables, but I didn't think 1 variable could equal 2 things. So you can set a variable to be a HTML element and then also set its inner HTML to something
Are you
else.
talking about I?
No, I'm talking about talk entry.
Well, that's talk entry, and that's the talk entry inner HTML.
So it has like 2 sections.
Yeah, portions, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that's the variable itself. That's what's going to be inside of the variable. All right.
So it's kind of like an array of 2 indices.
And you can use that. I wouldn't use that term. All right. It's more or less, it's an object that's got a bunch of stuff inside of it. All right. And again, I'm leaving this up here. If you type all of yours in and for whatever reason, if yours does not work, you're going to have to go back and look at it on the tape, all right? Because again, my goal is it's 8:40, and I'd like to get done with the Chapter 6 stuff as soon as we can, the other two, and then after we get done with that, we'll take a break. Then after the break, we'll go over that miles per gallon program. I don't want to be done any later, ideally, than about an hour from now, because then you still have 2 hours to work on your stuff. I'm trying to give you a window of at least 2 hours per class period where you're able to be doing lab. I'm more concerned with not that you type this in, but do you understand what's happening in here? That's what I'm concerned with. And you've also now got a focal point or something you can use, because next Wednesday, you're going to be doing this. You're going to be making modifications to that BMI program that's going to add stuff from Chapter 5 and from Chapter 6. Does that make sense? What does that mean? That means that you're going to have to be adding notes from Chapter 5, and you're going to have to be doing work with forms and form validation in Chapter 6. All right? I haven't written the test yet, so I can't tell you any more about it than that. Probably I'm not going to write it until Monday. All right? I'm lucky I get to leave at 3 tomorrow instead of at 4:30, and if it's Mr. Corrigan leaves early, I might even leave a couple minutes before that, because I've got my 5-hour drive tomorrow to get back to Illinois. Does everybody have this code? Anybody still typing it in? If you are, okay, that's fine. And if you were going to concentrate on something for the test, I'd look at this stuff and try to make sure you understand what that is. And if you go, well, I don't, you go back up to the top of the program and you look at the comments that came there. I'm going to try to be specific. Your test might be 2 or 3 pages long, not because there's that much stuff, but I want to tell you exactly what I'm looking for. I don't want anybody to go, I don't know what the hell you want. That's the last thing in the world I want when you start taking a test. All right? There are instructors that I used to work with at the school that I used to be at that they love to do that. They would tell me, yeah, I gave this test. I really screwed with people today. You know, I put this stuff in there, and people were just looking at me really funny, and they didn't know what the hell I even wanted. It was great. And I thought, what an asshole. I did. That's honestly, and a couple times I even said that to them. You know, you're an ass. But I'll tell you the ultimate one, and maybe I told you this already, but because this is why I won't do that. Okay, I'm 19 years old. I'm a student at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. I need a psychology requirement. I don't want to take an intro to psych class. All right, but I'm told by my counselor you have to. I actually like the class. I don't know what the hell I want to do for a living, so the next semester I take a physiological psychology class. If you don't know, that's basically psychology of the brain, for lack of better words. Okay? Why am I telling you this? Well, it wasn't a hard class. It was really an interesting class. When I took the final, I needed a 6 to get an A for the class. A 6. There were 25 questions. I needed to get 6 right. They told you basically it was like our tests. It was like our written test. They told you what they're going to be. Okay? So I take the test. I'm thinking, okay, I might have gotten 1 or 2 wrong, but I got my 8. So they could come around with the key. They have us grade our own tests. Okay? This is psychology of the brain. They gave us the wrong key on purpose. Okay? Because they wanted to watch people doing this and erasing stuff. And they were recording all this stuff and didn't tell us that. I started to make some changes. I thought, well, first of all, that's cheating. And it's wrong. Second of all, somebody's screwing with me because I know some of these answers are just wrong. And I thought, you know what's going to happen? They're going to come back in 10 minutes and they're going to go, hey, we're sorry, we gave you the wrong copy of the key. So I just stopped and literally just sat there for about 10 minutes. They came on, that's exactly what they did. So then you saw the same people doing this again and putting in their answers they had to begin with. And I just thought to myself, I'm never going to be a teacher. But if I ever did, I sure as hell would never do anything like that. So everybody has this now, correct? All right. Then if you bring up the first one for chapter 6, which is 6-1. And you have all this stuff in there. I don't know if this script file, one of these files is really big on here. I don't remember if it's the script file or not, so let's just take a quick look. Here's the results file. We're going to go over that in just a minute. There's the index file. I think you've got all of that, and this is the scripts file. I don't know how much of this, I don't know how much of this I didn't give you, but we'll look at it in just a minute. Let's run it first and see what it's supposed to be doing. All right. Is that pretty obvious when you look right there what it's supposed to do? All right, zip and social security must be numbers. So in other words, it doesn't say what numbers. All right. See, so it worked. So all we're validating is that the ones that are in there are numeric. Okay? So this isn't a great validation, but I just wanted you to understand. And you'll also see that if I do come in here and I put in first of all, did you notice this? 755. See that? That's autocomplete right there that we talked about earlier. So if I go and choose that, see how it filled that in for me? That's autocomplete. All right. You can turn that off too, but I'm going to put this in here. What is it? 63385, and we'll leave the social security number like that. Now that's probably the way you'd want to do it, but we are not validating in here. Did you put anything in for the address, for the city, for the state? Did you put anything in there for them, and does it make sense? Does everybody get that? All right. So that said, then let's go in and take a look here. Again, we will create validation functions for a form that will work in all browsers. What does that mean? That means it doesn't matter if you're using an older browser or a newer browser, all right, that it'll work. In your text editor, open this up, add all that good stuff, create a new document, add JavaScript comments containing that, return to the index.html file, add the script tag. I think you've got all that. In the opening form tag, add code to disable browser-based validation, and then save your changes. All right? Where it says there, disable browser-based validation, that would mean that, for instance, anything that you put in there that had like required, all the HTML stuff, you wouldn't have that stuff in there. You are writing, I don't know if we talked about this, but I think we did. Okay, 2 words. Progressive enhancement, and the opposite of progressive enhancement is graceful degradation. With progressive enhancement, you assume the person running your web page has got nothing. They can't use JavaScript, they can't use CSS, they can't do a flaming thing. So you build a bare bones site so they can see something. Then you add some functionality to it, so if they have CSS capabilities, now they can take advantage of that. Then you add some more capabilities with JavaScript to bring in the interactivity. So you assume the worst and you allow for the best. With graceful degradation, you assume the best, but you allow for the worst. So it's just, 2 sides of the same coin, whatever the heck you want to call it. All right. So you're going to have to help me here. Do you have this entire file in here? Do you have the entire index.html file? I think all I did was I removed some of your JavaScript. All right, and I think you've got the entire results file as well. But let's go look at that first. Just so you know, the stuff that you see in here, in these script tags, do you have this? I think I kept that in there. This is what's printing out those results. So that is what's printing out this. It's that page right there. Does that make sense? And how is it doing that? Well, we're telling it basically to go through the entire thing that's in there. All right? And we're telling it basically to flip through and make some changes. The stuff that's in here isn't that important. The idea is this is a way that we can write things to another page. That's what's important. And if you say, well, how does that work? Go into that page and make changes to this. That's how you learn how it works. All right? Now, what you've done this entire semester is if you create a form and you click a submit button, it's a trick question, but what happens? Typically, absolutely nothing. Just so you know that. Absolutely nothing happens. Because we are learning about client-side stuff. When you click submit, it's supposed to send it to a server. What we're doing here is we're mimicking sending it to a server. All right? Am I going to have you do something like this? I don't know. But at least you know what to look at if you're running through it just to see what it is. I might have you just literally echo to another page all that stuff that you just entered. This is a good way of doing it. Doing it the other way, you'd have to go back and you'd have to put in each field. And if you've got a form that's got 20 fields in it, would you rather put it into a for loop? Or would you rather have 20 lines where you're putting in each one? I'd rather do it this way. All right. So here's the script. And again, I don't remember what I gave you in here. First of all, everybody understanding what that's doing at the top, that use strict? Yes or no? All right. If you put use strict in there, maybe I've given you this analogy before, maybe I've not. I don't know. I had a good friend, Scott, that I knew when I used to work at a food store. We both had the same job there. All right. He was a great guitarist. He was in a band and he played electric guitar and he was really good. When I go over to his house, we'd screw around because I sing and stuff, and so does he. He'd pull out his acoustic guitar. Okay? Every once in a while, he hit a sour note. You could hear how it sounded, But with an electric guitar, I always asked him, you guys, when you performed, I saw his band a couple times. I said, did you ever hit a bad note? He goes, oh, yeah. I said, what happens? He goes, they can't tell. I said, why? He said, that's why you've got an amplifier. All right? Because we just turn it up loud enough that if I screw up, it's real hard to tell. But he said a couple times I played out acoustically, and if I hit a bad note, everybody knows. So why am I telling you that? Because regular JavaScript is like playing an electric guitar. If you forget a semicolon, 99 times out of 100, it doesn't care. If you don't use the word var, 99 times out of 100, it doesn't care. When you use strict, it's like now you're playing an acoustic guitar. It expects the word var before every variable. It expects it to be that you are using JavaScript more like most other programming languages. There are many people that I know that are JavaScript programmers. They are mandated to put the use strict at the top of their programs because it forces you to become a better programmer. So, you can raise your hand and go, then why the hell didn't they tell us that in Chapter 1? That's a good question. All right, because why not learn it the better way right away? Okay. All right. Do you have this? Do you have the variables? All right. I think I took out what was in the try block. Is that right? All right. So let's take a look at what's in there. In English, this is basically saying, okay, I want to check the current element. All right. If there's nothing in there, I want to turn it that pinkish color and set that to false. Otherwise, I want to keep it white. Does that make sense? This is not a great way of doing it, but this is using pure JavaScript to do this. validate required. If your goal is to graduate from this program and to become a web designer, let's just say it is. So let's say Evan's like, yeah, that's what I want to do. Okay, cool. Probably you're never going to do anything like this. You're probably going to always use the HTML5 controls. You are. And as time's going on, they're going to become even more sophisticated. All right, so a lot of the stuff that you're learning right here is going to go by the wayside. So you might say, well, that's fine, then why the hell are we even learning it? Because there are a lot of places that are not going to change their code. They've got this kind of code in there already. They're not going to change it because it works. All right. My first programming job, I asked my boss, he had me fix some code. There were like 300 error messages. I got them all fixed. There were like 1,000 warnings. I said, you want me to fix these warnings? He goes, hell no. I said, why? He said, does it work? I said, yeah. He goes, then don't fix it. And I said, well, I was always taught in school that a warning is like an error in hiding. And he's like, well, whoever taught you that? I don't buy that theory. It's not exactly what he said. He called the person who taught that an asshole. But, he said he didn't care. But so what I'm telling you is you're still going to find code out there that's like this that people are not going to change because it's working. So you have to be able to look at it and figure out what they're doing. We'll finish this one and then we'll take a break. And again, if Colin says to me, I turned mine in and it worked, but I didn't do it like this, that's fine. All right. There's going to be at least a good chance that when you take your test a week from tomorrow, that you're not going to all solve the problems that are in there the same way. All right. So if Andrew does it one way, Christopher does it another, but they both work, that's what matters. And does everybody get to this right here? This is all in a try block, so conceivably, all the stuff that's in there, anything that's in there, could fail. All right. So if I did something like this, instead of plus plus, I never put that in there, I'd get into an infinite loop. This is bringing together a lot of the stuff that we've talked about in previous chapters. Now, did I give you the if also in here, or was that not in there? Did I just, no? Okay. I was doing this yesterday, and I kept trying to say, I wanted to give you enough stuff that you had to type in something, and we could talk about it, but not so much that you'd have to spend an hour and a half doing it. Yes.
So for that error div, which is running off the error text ID of here in this form on index.html, how do you know where it's gonna appear?
I believe that's in the CSS, but I'm not positive. If you look up on the screen here, even if you're still typing, if you stop for a second, you notice that when we created this required validity, first of all, it's Boolean, you know that. So we come through here. It's true. It's true. It's true. It's true. It's true. It's false. So by the time it gets out of here, it's going to be either true or false. That should make sense to you. So this is saying, if when you get done, if it is false, just throw a message that says complete all fields. All right? Move down a little bit. This one is a little bit more complex. If you want, I'll ask this when we get done. But if yours doesn't work or whatever, if anybody wants a hard copy of this file, I will print them out. All right, just this one. I don't want to print out the other ones. I'm so tired of wasting paper here. So you'll notice that all of this here, all of this, that's the try statement. So inside of the try, after I get done with this for loop, I check to see if the required validity is false. If it is, then I'm telling it to go in and throw this where it'll be caught right there. Does what's going on there, does that make sense? Here's a little hint for you. All right, again, I can't tell you this for sure because I have not written the test yet. But what I'm looking at right now, think about this. For that BMI, there's only two things you're really inputting, correct? The height and the weight. Would you agree with that? That's really it. Well, I mean, name. I guess we added the name last time. So, okay, first name, last name, height and weight. With 1, 2, 3, or all four of those, I'm going to have you replace using some of those if statements with some try catches. All right, you're going to have that in there too. Or if you remember, we had try catch, but it was back in chapter 4, but I didn't put it in your test. I said it would be coming later. It's later. All right. My hope is by no later than Tuesday, when you come in here, all right, I'll have the test written. I'll let you know. I'll let you know what you should concentrate on. All right. Especially those of you, and a few of you in here are struggling with this part of the class. This is always the hardest part of the class. It is. All right, we get a lot of people who come in and they got a 90 to a 90, 99 average. Then they get into the JavaScript and they're like, geez, this is hard. All right. But whether you're going to be a web developer or an application programmer, you got to learn. You've got to understand programming. All right. All right. Does everybody have everything that's in here now? So I think the next one I did the same thing. So here's the try for the next one. So this is inside a function validate numbers. Hopefully when you look at that, you'll say, wow, that's a lot like the other one was. Yeah, I wouldn't go typing all this in. I'd copy in the other one that you just did up here. I'd copy in that entire thing from right here on down to the bottom, including the catch. So I'd copy all that, then I'd paste it in here. I'd remove the try that you have, and I'd paste the whole darn thing in, and then make changes. It's much faster doing it the other way. Unless you say, no, Jeff, I really like the type. Okay, then do it that way. Does everybody have the whole for loop stuff in here? Does everybody have that done? I can move it down then. Yes? Has everybody got all this? All right. Did I make you type anything down at the bottom here? Do you have all this? You have the entire validate form thing? Good. And you have the create event listeners? I think I left those too. And you've got this. All right. Now, how many of you would like a hard copy of this one? Anybody want one? No? Then that's fine. It's 9:10. Let's just take 10, come back at 9:20, and I'm going to go over. In fact, I'm going to put it up right now. So the last one we've got to go through is 6-4. All right, and that one is going to be this. This is pizza order form. Click here. You got the required fields and the stuff in there. I think that on this last one, I think that you've got all of the index, and I think it's just some of the JavaScript files. So I'll actually leave it up here. All right, and we'll take a look at that when you come back from the break at 9:20, please.